Starseeds are the guardians of Terra who hold the knowledge of our ancestors. They are the inner earth beings that come to guide us with their wisdom. They are the enlightened beings from all over the galaxies that come to Terra like comets of light. They are the pioneers, the way-showers, and the architects of a new world. One built upon integrity, unity, and love. These are their stories. Join us as they share their journey of hope, as they break down paradigms and limiting beliefs, as they share their challenges and struggles to fit into the very society they are here to shift. The good, the bad, the everything. This is a journey of a starseed. Welcome everybody to our Journey of a Starseed episode part 2 with Heidi Popp today. I'm really excited about this conversation because we are going to get deep diving into Are Your Children Triggering You? So welcome Heidi to my channel. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you, Sherri. Thanks for having me back. This is a treat. Thank you.
Yeah, I had such a great time in our conversation the other week. At a time is like a blur. I don't even know what day it is half the time anymore. But we in our first interview, it was so well received, and a lot of people said that they loved our energy together. So I knew we would be back again together at some point. And so I'm glad that we're able to do this today. And so the conversation that Heidi and I talked about a little bit before we started was, and something that's been coming up a lot for me personally, but also coming up with in my sessions with children, and then Heidi as well. So this is definitely something we should talk about today. Are our children and the role that they are playing right now in our life in order to help us heal. And it's bringing up some stuff, and it's triggering a lot in parents, and me included. Especially I think my daughter is here to help me heal, and so she is just pushing my buttons left and right. And I got a loving message recently for myself that, she's helping you heal, don't resist it. And at first I was kind of annoyed by that message because I'm, my 3D self was kind of like, she can't just act any way she wants to, like this is getting ridiculous. But then I had sessions recently with a mother with a very spirited young girl as well, and then a couple of others a few weeks prior that I started to look back at it, and I said, I think I'm getting the same message for all of us, which is that the children come in, and I do believe this. I believe our children are our biggest healers. They really facilitate, or the catalyst, at least for those that choose to have children. Now, those on a journey that don't have children in their life, they've chosen something else. But for the parents, I believe that we are truly healed by our children, and it continues on through generations. And right now, the Starseeds are really picking up the burden, not really the burden, but the journey of helping with ancestral healing. So a lot's coming up with us right now in this present moment, because we are kind of the last in line before they come in and help facilitate this ancestral healing. So I'd love to talk to you, Heidi, and pick your brain a little bit about how you feel about this topic and what's coming up for you as a mom, and what you've seen with your other your kids' friends, and what you think about this.
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost is no matter how much we train to master ourselves, we're still going to get triggered. That's part of this ongoing healing journey. And it really trips me up sometimes when one of my two children trigger me, because I'm like, I thought I was done with this. Like something will come up and be like, but I'm crying. I'm like, but I worked through this. What are you doing? And it's just another layer. And it is training to master yourself. And I thank them for that, but it's very hard in that moment to thank them. We do our best to be our best, but I do welcome the triggers now. And it really started with them being born. I really had to check myself. Am I ready to be a caregiver 24/7? Am I ready to give up a lifestyle? They triggered me to check myself. Like, this does not work for motherhood. You cannot go out this late. You cannot check out and have a hangover day. Like they were immediately triggering me to heal my meat suit and make better choices. But now we're in a very sensitive time where my daughter's reaching adolescence. So a whole new layer of stuff is coming up from being she's my daughter. And so my childhood at that same age. And then with my son, who is kind of an experiencer, and he goes that, solo hero journey starseed, like the one pal. Well, no, we'll talk about that. He triggers me because he has my temperament. So we can go toe to toe and toe to toe. And it's just like one of us has to surrender. Whereas my daughter, she keeps opening old wounds of mine. And I was not prepared for this stage in the game. So we're going through that right now. So perfectly timed talk.
Yeah. Well, and what we wanted to bring to the conversation today, and neither nor Heidi nor myself are trying to claim today in any way, shape, or form that we are experts in this area. We are simply parents, and we recognize the characteristics of starseeds and the clients that I work with, and we're just trying to offer suggestions and really a conversation about it, because we don't have all the answers. That's why we're talking about it. And I know that a lot of parents are frustrated right now, so they're looking for guidance and advice. And regardless of what either one of us say today, there isn't a one size fits all approach. And I've realized, that's, I think, the biggest lesson that my children taught me is that I had to parent them differently, and they are individuals and they require different things from me. And that really stepped me up, on my game, because when my first Jordan, who's now 18, is a crystal child, and he was so easy his whole life. He's never been challenging. His purpose on this planet, it seemingly was to make mom and dad happy. He didn't like to be in trouble. The thought of mom being disappointed in something he did was like the end of the world. And so that was my first experience. For 7 years, that's what I had, was this angel child that was just loving and kind, and he would do anything we asked him to do. He would, Jordan, go play over there, go do this, go, okay, mom, okay, no problem. Like, never ever complain. And so that was my introduction to motherhood. And I'm thinking, man, kids are easy, like this is easy.
Have some more.
It's like, what's he talking about? Like, he's so much fun. I love hanging out with him because he really went everywhere we went. it was just me, my husband, and Jordan, and we were young parents. So like, we took him everywhere and everybody loved him. And then Skylar came along 7 years, or around 7 years later. And he was like completely night and day, shockingly different. And I was like, excuse me, what's this? And suddenly all the things that I did with the first didn't work with the second. And I realized I had to parent him differently. And just saying no was not enough. He was like, well, why? He needed an explanation. He needed a thorough explanation as to why I was saying no. But what I noticed is if I took that extra moment to explain it to him, he'd be like, okay, mom. And then he would go off. And I'm like, okay. So I started to figure him out. And it took it some years, but eventually I understood him, and I needed to parent them differently, completely different personalities. And then my daughter came in just like complete different energy and threw me off. And, she's 8 years old and I'm still trying to figure out. So I haven't quite gotten there yet. But she is completely different, and I have to do things differently. She doesn't care about the explanation or the no. It's, I don't care, my way. And then we butt heads, and it's like, who's going to win? And so, I think for me, that was the biggest challenge, was just recognizing that these children, our children, are individuals just like you and I, and they require different parenting styles. They require the respect of at least looking at them as an individual, as opposed to a collective group. And so I think that is something helpful for parents right now, even if your children are older, maybe thinking about them individually like that. But really, it's, are they having behavioral issues right now, or are they bringing up stuff for us that we need to heal? And I had a conversation with a mom recently, and she said, my daughter just triggers me left and right all day long. And I said, I got him. And this was her actual daughter's higher self that came to me in the session. And she told me this. She said, I'm going to keep triggering my mom until she stops resisting to heal. Yes. And when I told the mom that, she had to admit, she said, Sherri, oh my God, like, you're so right. And so I wondered how many other millions of parents out there are experiencing the same thing, where their children are pushing them, pushing the boundaries, not to be difficult, but to encourage us to think differently, to act differently, to bring up those old wounds that, like you said, I thought I was done with that. There are things that I thought I was done with, and I clearly am not either. And so we tend to heal in the time frame that is best for us. So maybe it's the next level of this particular healing that you're going through right now, and you're ready for it. Maybe you weren't ready before. So I think our children are doing a lot for us, but I'd like to change the tone of the conversation to, our children aren't necessarily bad and their behavioral issues because of some malintent. I think that they're truly trying to get us to recognize what needs to be healed within ourselves. So do you want to talk more about your daughter and the adolescent stage and how that is for you and what it's bringing up? Because I haven't gotten there yet, but my daughter's 8, but I swear it's like tomorrow. It's around the corner. I could feel that energy coming. So I'm close, but I'm not quite there yet. So what is it like for you?
I think the first step that was pretty hard was she did start to blossom very early, what's considered early. So before her mind was ready, I think. So navigating the sensitivities of having your body change into womanhood before this is ready, that taught me grace and patience, and to slow down and to really be clear on my communication, and just it wasn't like, let's sit down and talk about your body today. It was more of watching her demeanor. Is she comfortable? Is she confident? How can I assist it without drawing attention to it? That was the hardest part, because I felt at her age now, which is 12, when I was 12, there was a lot of attention put on I just don't want to repeat the pattern. So when I'm seeing things, I have to step away and be like, but she's not me. She is her own person. I cannot superimpose what was going on in my head at that age, that she's going through the same thing. So I'm really cautiously dancing around it, because I also don't want her to close off. My son is the one that's like, oh yeah, tell me more. And whereas my daughter's like, here's something, and goes inward. So it's a dance. So there's the body issues, there's the moon cycle and the emotional ride there, and even cravings. And I hit a point where I was unhealthy with my foods. So I'm like, how can I navigate this without getting her on this path of being afraid of food? I don't know if at my age, was I afraid of it? I just had no boundaries, and I had no frame of reference of what is a good way to go. How can I keep my body, my energy going? So with her, I'm very careful in my word selection. The hardest part is refraining from saying anything in the first place, and just holding the space with her and not drawing attention is where I'm just kind of, once in a while, I'm like, I'll catch myself being like, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable in the shirt? It looks like you're hiding. Or it looks like, is everything feeling good up here? Because she's blossomed so much. I can see her her shoulders going in. I'm like, and then I have to stop myself. I'm like, she wasn't even thinking that. She was thinking of going to play with her friends, and I'm making her go, oh no, what's with my body? So I really have caught myself with the words coming out of my mouth saying, what are you doing? Heidi, retreat. And then I'll just sit there and go, sorry, pal, I think I'm getting triggered of my own childhood right now. I'm going to just take a moment. Or I'll say, are we good? Is everything, are you feeling really, in your body? You feeling good today? And I have to shift it to a little more positive instead of insecurities, which is what I had. I can't assume she's going to have them, but I see this really fine line right now. And then something we were talking about beforehand, we just went through a really interesting round of, my mom was in town. So grandma was in town, and that's my mom. So when I'm with the 3 generations, I felt myself reverting back to my childhood thought process and my childhood ways and my insecurities and what's my mom going to think about me being a mother? And all she had to do, my daughter picked up on that energy, and I got challenged. It wasn't like I was bringing out insecurities or anything, but she could see my insecurities. And so she challenged me, and I got even weaker. I was like, not in front of my mom. I'm getting embarrassed. Blah, blah, blah. And like when we're out to eat, even I'll call out the food, something my mom used to do to me. And I'm like, I've never done that to her. I'm like, what am I doing? And it warranted a conversation after my mom left, but it also, that wasn't divinely timed either. When I brought it up after the fact, she's like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm like, "Oh, I missed an opportunity." So does that
It's the
kind of
whole imprinting. It's like imprinting of our experiences on them. It's like you can't assume that she was uncomfortable because you were thinking about it from your perspective of what it was like for you and how uncomfortable you were. And again, it's like they're encouraging us to heal that wound that was within you that maybe had nothing, like it didn't even need to include her. You could have gone and done some soul healing later that day about how you felt at 12 years old, blossoming, and how uncomfortable you were, and doing some inner child work that she brought that up for you. But we internalize it as parents as, oh no, we need to protect our children. And that's the biggest, I think that's the biggest challenge, mistake, whatever you want to call it, that we're still working through, because there's always a balance and this is something I struggle with. I never want my child to experience this thing that I experienced. I don't want that for them, and I think every parent out there to some degree is guilty of this thought. I don't want them to ever experience not being hungry and not having food too. Oh, I don't ever want them to experience not having toys. So we overcompensate and we get them too much stuff. And then they've got a million things. And there's a balance. So it's a lot of us in this generation now that are parents and even grandparents are probably going through that thought process of, did I overcompensate? Because, children do need to come here to experience some level of challenge. So we can't take care of everything for them, even though, like, for me, my biggest trigger is bullies, because I was bullied a lot as a child, so much so that I'm still dealing with that inner child work for myself. The girls were so mean to me, and it made me tough on the exterior and close off, and then everything, it challenged me my whole life up, well into my 20s. And so when I see my children being bullied, and they've all been bullied at some point, all three of them, I get so triggered by that. I want to go to that school and I want to yell at that little kid and say, "Who do you think you are?" Of course I don't. I've never done that, but I want to solve the problem. I want to hug my kids and tell them everything's going to be okay and that will never happen again, and protect them from the world that I can't do that. I can't do that. So there's some level of how much do we intervene and interact, and how much do we let them figure things out for themselves? And that, I think, is such a challenge right now, because Starseeds are very wise. And I think that to some degree, they come in to experience these challenges just like we did, but they think differently. They're more evolved. And so they might have a different experience than us. And we can't try to solve everything for them. We can't give them everything that we never had either, because then they don't learn anything. What are your thoughts on that?
I tell you, the absolute hardest part that I could feel my internal struggle of like, is to not say anything or to retreat. And because you're like, but if I retreat, it's all going to go downhill, and then this is really going to happen. And it's like, is it though? So you can be aware of a situation, but you don't have to insert yourself every time. And that's where I knew I had to draw the line. And that old wound trauma healing that I was doing last week when my mom was in town reminded me of that. The little girl in me was always beating myself up of, why didn't I say something in the moment, or why didn't I intervene in the moment? So now I feel like I have to intervene for her. And it's not my journey. She's on her own. And then I look at the characteristics of, what is it actually I'm trying to intervene to make sure, her body's balanced and she has enough energy and she's nutritionally sound. Like there's usually an umbrella of an emotion or a situation or feeling you're really trying to protect or teach, and just start with that. You don't have to start with that actual moment and dissect it and get these insecurities going. You can bring it up later, like, I'm feeling called to talk a little bit more about nutrition today. The seasons are changing. We have, you can come in a little bit and teach another way. They know how to put that together. They'll put it together. I also am telling myself to give her more of benefit of the doubt. She is coming in at a different time on the planet where the frequencies are higher. She's here for a reason right now. I have to trust her. I have to trust her just like she trusts me to do the right thing in the right moment. And so it's so funny because I'm at the table or in the room with them, and inside I'm like, like the movie Inside Out, all my little characters are like all talking and we're all having this thing. And I'm looking across the table, I'm like, she actually looks really peaceful. I think she's enjoying herself. Why do I need to interject right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to remind myself, am I being a safe space and a mom that she can come to when she does have something to say? I think that was a trigger we talked about last time. I want to make sure, because I didn't quite have that very much. I want to make sure I'm somebody that if she does encounter a situation where she says, I'm feeling off or I'm feeling insecure, that she can come to me. And not having that, I get extra hyper and sensitive. Like, well, I'll bring it up before she does, so she doesn't have to. No, that's what I wanted. Doesn't mean that's what she
Yeah.
wants.
I think it's like the foundation of why do we lie to begin with? We're not ever taught to lie. I don't think. I think we figure it out as young children. And the reason why 99% of the time a child lies is because they're afraid. What are they afraid of? They're afraid of getting into trouble. And so your child is not, no matter what you say, if your reaction every time is excessive or emotionally what you say, and then also you're verbally and then maybe even physically, then you're training them to hold everything in and not feel safe. And I have a lot of traumas with that as a child growing up as well. And so keeping a lot of it in. And so, my mom would say, oh, you want to experiment with drugs, come to me, or you want to tell me, you can do it with me first. Because my mom was young and cool and hip. But I never did that. And I asked myself why as an adult, like, why didn't I feel comfortable telling her or doing those things, even though she offered it? But because she's saying one thing, but doing something else in her actions. And so we could say all of the right things, but if they don't feel through our body language or through this, when it actually does happen in our acute reaction, we can't control, then they learn, okay, mom doesn't mean what she says, or dad doesn't mean what they say. And so that is another one. Do they feel safe? Do they feel honored? And I try my best with my children not to overreact. And so, and it's clear in my house because most of my kids, pretty much 3 out of 3 will come to me first and they'll say, oh, don't tell dad, and we work through that because they know that I'm going to be open-minded for the most part, unless it's a big thing, they'll come tell me and be like, don't tell dad. And that's a reason because of their conditioning. So I don't know if that's something you agree with as well.
Oh, sure. Yes. And I mean, being that safe space is huge for me. That's the activation. You did say something before, and I wanted to, well, because that's my daughter, but with my son being a little younger and us in the temperament going toe to toe, what I love about him in those challenges is he really pushes me to be clear. He really makes me practice my clarity with communication, because the triggers I have with him is if I say one thing, sometimes it's not enough. He's like, he'll just keep checking me like, and what do you mean by that? And what does that mean? And where's this from? And what would usually be like, oh, just stop and, go over there. I'm challenged to be like, no, he's asking an important question and be clearer, Heidi. So I have to be very specific. And I had to get out of this programming of he's 9, he's not going to understand. Like he understands not only the words I'm using, but he's listening to the tone. And do I believe what I'm saying? Because if I don't, he'll keep coming at me. So sometimes he will sit with me too. If I'm like, and I have to think, and he's like, just waiting for me. It's like,
that's so funny.
And I'm like, and I would think it'd be the opposite with the adolescent. No, it's my little man who's like, and why would this be inappropriate for me to use my own money to buy 5,000 stickers? In the point, and we just go and we go and we go. And then by the end, it's like, it feels like a workout. And it's like, thanks. And then, but I enjoy too, him giving me the patience to work through it and be specific and clear and not demeaning or just dismissive. We get to the point often, and it's like case closed, and then we move on. It's like he can't move on until the case is closed. And I like that. And I
That's
think
such a
that.
good example. I love that example, Heidi. I think that that is a perfect example of what we're saying about how our children are here to help us heal. He's deprogramming you and encouraging you to think for yourself and come up with this whole conclusion on your own through your own thoughts and not thoughts that you've been programmed from, like your mom, your dad, professors, mentors, previous relationships, etc., friendships, all of that. Because we don't realize our whole life we're programmed by all of them. One of the saddest cases that I had recently is a little starseed girl who's can't remember how old she was, 9 or 10, and she is so bright and so different than the other kids, but she's having a really hard time. And she came to me and she said, "It's just easier, Sherri, if I basically," she didn't say the word succumb, but succumb and just be like everybody else. Like she wanted to shy away her special gifts because she was being bullied for them. And she said, "It's just easier if I just be like, if I'm just like the other kids. I don't want to shine. I don't want to be different." And I think that happens a lot as well. And I think that perhaps she was trying to help maybe her mom through that. Our children will bring out that, those triggers within us. And it's funny, you talk about your son. That's what Aramis does to me. It's constantly like, "Well, why, mom? But why? It's always been done this way. Well, why has it been done that way? And how did it work? And that doesn't make any sense to me." That she always says this. "That doesn't make sense to me. That's not right." And you know what, though, most of the time when I just take the anger, the emotion out of it, and I really think about it objectively, I'm like, I think she's right. And I think that that's what our kids are here to do as well, is break that programming, that cycle of, okay, well, my mom made me do that because her mom made her do that. Or my dad made me do that because all the dads in the generations did that too as well. And that's just how it is. Period at the end of the statement, or exclamation, no questions asked. You can't argue it. That's not happening anymore, right? I think they're encouraging us to think about it and be like, does that actually work? Does that make any sense? And then they're like, "Did my job," and then they go run off and play like it didn't even affect them. It's like, yep, I got mom's brain thinking. And my daughter does that to me all the time.
Isn't that great? And she's 8 and my guy's 9. So it's like that wave. It's like that wave. And I see that with some of his friends, or like his one starseed buddy he likes to hang with. Same way to his mom. He's really like, she'll tell him something and he goes, "But you sound angry about that. Why does this sound like you're saying a fun thing, but you sound angry." And she's like, "Well, because I'm actually stressed about the drive to get there." "Say that, mom." Like, these kids are genius.
Honesty. They want honesty, right? They're little human lie detectors.
Yeah, they are.
They know when
They
we're lying.
check us. Yeah,
Well,
and it's great.
let's talk about because the topic that came up also for us, and I'd love for you to start off this part is, it looks as though a lot of starseed, including one of my children, my son Skylar, is very much like this. They're preferring, instead of the old school mentality of we have all these friends and in popularity and, "Oh, I'm friends with everybody," and to, "I just want that one friend, that one good friend that gets me," because I think they feel so different that it's hard for these starseeds to make friends these days, because there are so many differences in them and the other children, and they really struggle with that. And so when they find the one that they feel comfortable with, they kind of latch onto, and that's all that they desire. They don't, like, it would be our old school thinking, "Oh, don't you want to have more friends?" But they don't. So you were talking about that before we recorded about your son. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. And just hearing it now again, it resonates with me as a child. My parents were always where they were calling classmates to try to give me play dates. And I'd be like, "No, I don't want to go. I'm just happy in my room." I was so comfortable. But yes, that's like my son. He loves his one buddy. And I notice his demeanor. He's just more grounded in his body when he's with this one pal. They trust each other. It's a safe space. And then when he does have a chance a couple days a week to get in that classroom setting, sometimes the educator who picks up on all the energies and everything, she's like, "I can't get him down. Like, I can't bring him back into his body." He's like, it's almost like he feels all the other eyes, so he doesn't know what to do with himself. He's like, "Do I make him laugh? Do I do this? Do I do that?" But then he's exhausted. It's not authentic. So he can get very physical in that sense. He still loves the maternal hugs, and even the educator will just kind of put her arm on his shoulder, and he goes, and he just grounds a little bit, and then gives him a task to just get a little more grounded. So with him, yeah, I love his demeanor around this one particular starseed pal that we have, because at the very beginning of their friendship, the mom and I are like, we met each other and we're like, oh my gosh, you're a galactic sister. And we found each other. We're like, that's it. Our kids are friends. And then we watched our boys like try to figure each other out. It wasn't instantaneous. It's like they were challenge each other with their strengths and their knowledge. And they just got to this point of like, okay, yeah, you're as strong as I am. We're best friends. And then they just settle into their friendship. And now it's like the most peaceful get-togethers. They can go through like 5,000 different activities together, no altercations. It's really kind. But you throw another kid or two in the mix, and it gets uncomfortable. My daughter just loves being around the people right now. I think because she's discovering herself, she gravitates towards the guys. That's her guy groups. She loves like gaming and Dungeons and Dragons, and she loves not caring about what, that the girly stuff. She calls, oh, the girl drama at school, mom. It's just so. And I'm like, what is it about it you don't like? She's like, they talk about each other. She sees the fakeness, she sees the lies, and she sees people not wanting to wear one thing, but they wear it because their best friend's wearing it. And she's like, why? And I'm like, yeah, she's doing okay. But she does like, all the excitement. She's quiet. She's a little bit of a wallflower socially, but she likes being around all the people. Whereas my son, he doesn't say he chooses one. I just see he's at his best self with one, and he really gets super creative with when he's balanced with another starseed. Yeah,
my son who's 10, Skylar, he's the same way. He doesn't say, Mom, I only want one friend. But every time I'm thinking, is he happy? Does he want more friends? It's almost like he's like, no, Mom, I don't, is there anybody else at school you want to bring over? No, Mom. I like, this particular child. I don't want to say anyone's name, but, and I have to respect that, because I think that that's the reason why he just feels comfortable with the one, and they get each other. And when they come over, he comes over, it's easy, and they play, they do their thing. And then he also likes, he's very much like me. He likes his alone time. So it's like, okay, Mom, I'm done. I want to be by myself. And then he'll spend the whole day in his room sometimes if he wants to. Yeah. And I was like that as a kid too. I was not a social butterfly. Well, possibly because I was being bullied so much. So I became very introverted and shy, and I just kind of did my own thing. And I'd go outside and I'd play with my dog, and I was content with that. I didn't need a lot of friends. So I just didn't trust anybody. But my daughter, I can see she's like a social butterfly. She thrives with the people giving her attention, even though she pretends like she's shy. She loves it. She wants to have lots of friends. And I think she also struggles though, because her challenge is different. She wants other friends, but she can't find any that she fits in with. So she's really sad, because she's like, Mommy, I want to play with more girls, but this girl's mean, or this girl, and also she's a little bit overweight, and she's very conscientious about that, or self-conscious. And I think she gets made fun of. And so she's going through a difficult period right now. And I think we just, as parents, again, this conversation is not to give a parent all the answers, but maybe if you hear that your child is like our sons, where they maybe need just one friend, you might have an aha moment of, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's not a big deal as long as he or she is happy with that one friend. Yeah. Or you see that your daughter or son might be different in contrast, and they need lots of friends to feel more validated. Whatever it is that they need, we figure out what that is, and we just try to support it as opposed to trying to control it. I think is a challenge for a parent. We're always trying to control everything.
Yeah, there's no one size fits all. And we're just sharing our human experience. And I think that helps others feel, that there's someone else like them. But when we were saying too, with the kids and my childhood and wanting to be alone, and seeing that with my son, I think there is a relation of, when I was young, I didn't know I was picking up on everybody's energy. So it was overwhelming. Anywhere I was very overwhelmed. So I was safest in my room or quiet one-on-one. So I see that with my son. And I do see kind of similar attributes. When he's around everybody, he's picking up on everybody, that little starseed way. And then he gets exhausted. So comparing and contrasting, it's like, how I'm not imposing myself on him and how I handle it, because I really just hid in the trees and stuff. And he'll do that. He'll find at a park, it's play, and then he finds the highest tree and he just watches everybody. And I'm like, oh, I'll let him do that. You said something before, I totally forgot, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to watch how they're navigating other people's energy, and the work of making sure we don't impose ourselves too much. Just sharing this with people, though, I get some DMs, and when I started vlogging and everything and sharing these things, it's just people hearing, oh my gosh, me too. Or I thought my son just, what was he doing at school without me? Why doesn't he have friends? What is he doing? That came up before, and I'm like, oh, trust your kid. He might just want to be alone.
Trust your kid. That's the biggest thing. I think you hit the nail right on it, Heidi. I think that, again, we want so much for our children, but sometimes we want through our perception. So we want what we think is best for them, and it may not align with what is actually best for them, because they are spiritual beings just like us on a spiritual journey here. And we don't know what they planned out in their spiritual blueprint of what they wanted to experience. And we don't know all the whys, because sometimes our children don't have the bandwidth, nor do they have the words to express why your child wants to be alone. Maybe they're not depressed. There's nothing wrong with them. They're overwhelmed by the energy of the environment. And maybe they don't know how to say that to you. Or maybe they feel like they're going to get in trouble because, mom and dad really want them to be a different way. So then they try to be something that they're not. And then there's an internal conflict happening. This happens a lot. And I think that, again, this is just an important conversation to just kind of throw out these ideas that perhaps it could be something else. And another good point you brought up too is going back to the behavioral component. Sometimes our children are misbehaving because they are holding in all of this environmental energy that's not theirs. They're angry, but it's not their anger. They're sad, it's not their sadness. Where did they get it from? Did they get it from a long day at school and they come home? Maybe they just need an outlet to get that all out. Let them jump up and down or scream, or help them facilitate that energy of like getting it out, transmuting it. Maybe they just need help doing that, but we perceive it as, oh, they're so mean when they come home. Why are they such a bad mood? Well, because they took on a lot and they don't know how to process it. So maybe they need some help with that. Or they pick up, I know my kids pick up on my energy. My son Skylar, he can read my mind like no one else. He's like, he'll come up, put his hand on my back real gentle. Like, mommy, are you okay? What's wrong? I'm like, I didn't say a thing. I'm just doing the dishes. I'm just doing the dishes, not talking to anybody. He can tell. He's like, mommy, something's not right. Are you okay? And then I just want to cry and let it all out.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm going to do that to a 10-year-old. I'm like, mommy's okay. But what it does is it reminds me of, oh gosh, maybe I need to go upstairs and, get this out somehow, take a shower, cry it out, or go on a walk or whatever. So our children sometimes can just remind us of, okay, what I need to do for myself. Yeah. Mommy timeout. That's what I call it. When we get really frustrated with them, sometimes it's not them that needs to be punished. We just need to take a moment, and I call it a mommy, or I guess I shouldn't just exclude dads, parent timeout, where we go and we breathe it out, our frustrations, so that we're not triggering them with our reactions. It's crazy, this whole parenting world. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah. I call it me time. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I just need a moment. Like, I need some me time. I have to say though, when a trigger hits, sometimes I have to ask though, are their needs being met? Sometimes it comes from their needs are just not being met, and it might not be what you think it is. So you just have to assess it. Or my other one, which I'm dealing a little bit more with my adolescent, my tween, is they're just flexing their muscles. And we're the safe space for them to do that. And we need to be that space. We need them to check their boundaries and practice so that when they go out in the real world, they know, oh, this voice can, I'm secure in this voice. I'm secure in this thought. And to not keep shooting them down. Like if you're having a quiet moment and having some me time and they're coming and flexing their new ways a little bit. Don't shoot it down right away. Be like, oh, I see you found a new voice. That's great. Why don't you take it outside? Because I'm going to have some me time, or just something, because I'll notice like, oh, I don't want to create insecurities because I'm so fearful of being grown with some, or I have to really check, did I meet their needs? Is this just, are they hangry? Are they hungry and angry? Are they tired? Are they like a baby? You have to kind of assess, is this coming from something else? So it is kind of like a check everything first and then just be like, all right, I'm just going to let them go through this right now. But the quick to judge, the quick to something's wrong with my child, or, oh my gosh, they must be on the spectrum, or, oh no, like there's just the fear thing. That's programming. That's sheer programming. And we can fix that. We can work on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're just who they are, right? Just like we are who we are. And it's sometimes we forget that they're just being who they are and experimenting and flexing one day. But the opposite of that too, sometimes we forget, is our children will hold it together all day long. And then when they come home to the safe space, sometimes they just let it out. My son Skylar does this all the time. He won't show the world that he's upset. This is, again, part of his journey. He only feels safe, really, truly with me, that I'm like the only person. So he'll hold it together all day long. And he'll go out and do all this stuff. No one would ever know anything's wrong. Oh, he had a great time. This is that. He'll come in. He melts when he sees me, and he'll put his arms around me and start bawling. And I'm like, what's going on? And he just lets it all out. And he's like, and then he'll tell me, oh, this happened, because he's very sensitive to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we need to realize that we are that safe space. And, sometimes they act out around us because they're trying to put themselves together so much out of the day that they just need the opportunity to just be like, oh, fine, I could be. Just goes back to adult being mean. Sometimes we're unknowingly mean to the person that we love the most, because we know they're not going to go anywhere. So we're just like, I'm just going to let it out and maybe yell at them, and we don't mean it. The same thing with our children. They feel like they could do that with us because mom is safe, dad is safe, grandma is safe, grandpa is safe, etc.
Yeah. And they can be reminded of that. They can be reminded of, wow, how brave and strong you are to hold on to that all day until you got comfortable to get it out. Like, what a strong, brave thing to do, just to be like, recognize that I see you must have been holding on to that energy all day. Whoa, that must have been intense. How'd you do that? Get a little empowerment there. But yeah. Again, I think I just got another hit of like, my work right now is to not retreat to my childhood and bring up my stuff and put it on them. I can keep healing and mastering myself, but I've got to remember to not make it their storyline too. So I'm so grateful. I was grateful you brought up this topic because, I was mid trip with my mom and everything. And I'm like, this is so important because, I talk more, I do more, vlogging and talking, and I'm constantly finding new things to work on. Oh, real quick though, I did remember what I was going to say before, with my son. Last year, I started even vlogging about it. I almost got passive aggressive to class. I was so irate. It was like an entire year and he didn't get one invitation to any like boys' birthdays or anybody's class hangouts, nothing. And I was irate. Meanwhile, he's like, he could care less. He wasn't asking to or nothing. And here I am taking it to the screen. I'm like, if parents these days, stuff like that. And I was totally ignoring his needs. He was like, I'm good. These are not people I want to share my energy with. I'm totally good. I couldn't believe how much he checked me. And then sure enough, he's having a lovely time this year. But again, his preference is to hang out with that one starseed. It was kind of a little callback, but that was just last year. So I'm working on this parenting thing every day. You're never done, by the way.
Yeah, we're never done. No, it's hard. One thing that I've noticed too that's changing with starseeds and generations, and I wonder how people watching this feel, because again, no right or wrong. But the older generations, I felt like they always put, it was this huge energy about, oh, listen to your father, fear the father. Mom always backed father. Mom, and you see it in sitcoms, the children, the parents, the mom. Sometimes, and I remember getting mad when I used to watch it as a kid, I remember being like, why can't the mom ever say that the kid is right? Why is it always, oh, listen to your dad, and the moms would yell at the kids. And I knew innately that was wrong. And I think a part of me is compensating as an adult too, because I put my children first. Anyone that knows me, I go above and beyond for them. I'm always thinking about them 100% of the time. It's always like, what do they need? What is their needs always come. I'm always thinking about how their life could be better. What can I do better for them? And it's exhausting. It is. But sometimes I think there needs to be a balance, because sometimes I forget their dad does matter. I love him dearly. But then I'm just like, there's this battle between me of like kids, and we shouldn't do that. Everybody should be on the same page. So that's something I'm personally working through. Again, no right or wrong, but that's something that I'm curious if other people watching this are experiencing that battle. And of course, this can be those that are can still in the intimate family is still together, or even those that are separated and co-parenting. It works just the same about that, because co-parenting probably brings it to a whole other level of complicated, because you're just like, what's he doing over there? What's she doing over there? But what are and so leave us some comments, but what are you experiencing with that? Do you have anything to talk about with that?
Well, I do as a child, the same way. Yeah. Like, oh, your dad's going to be mad when he hears about this. And it's like trained to fear the dad.
Yeah.
Stepdad stepped into the role, and he's got a little bit of that authority in general. And it's like, even my son once said, he goes, when you walk behind me and you go, I feel like you're about to say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And I love how he shared that, because I went to stepdad and I'm like, we don't want them to fear you. It's one thing to step into the role and get discipline and chores and routine, because that's what they were missing. And I appreciate you helping us get that routine in place. I go, but don't let them fear you. Have fun with them too. We navigated something that maybe some viewers did as well, but when they were very young, early childhood, they had abandonment from their biological dad. Now he's in town in LA. He's popped in and out a couple times, and the mom guilt I have for that is intense, because I'm the one who kept letting him in. And then he just kept, hurting again, like not showing up again. So we had to navigate that a whole different way. And I watched them go through that, like not having a father figure in general. And I had to be both hats. And we were all distressed because the soft maternal mom was getting lost in the survival mode, masculine protection. And so those couple years that I had to wear both hats, they had to step into survival mode themselves, because they didn't have full mom or full dad. And it was very discombobulated. We all went through a lot of stuff that we're still navigating, but it's all the more reason why I'm really proud and really honored and grateful to be on my own awakening spiritual journey, because I feel like I've been handling that pretty well. They do stay in their heart. I'm raising them to not be angry at their father or talk about him in any way. But what they are aware of is a father steps into the divine masculine role. A father will be there for you and step in, and protection, and provides and makes your mom feel good, so they get to see the stepdad do that. And I remind him of that too. I go, it's not just authority. We have to show them that, what a relationship looks like. I know my daughter's educator was gravely concerned, and she went to all the parents and said, everyone remember when you were young, did you ever see your parents like kiss or hold hands or, go on a date? And most everyone said, of course. And she goes, I overheard all our children today say, my parents never kiss. Ew, that's gross. And holding hands. And she goes, and they're confused and they're lost. She goes, we're so concerned with the media and this whole agenda of confusion and identity and all that. But what are we modeling at home? And so I was like, it resonated so big, because here I'm like, oh, don't let him see. And I got all prudish and prissy and everything. And then I'm like, what are they going to go off of? The agendas, or do they have a home base where they can see what a loving partnership is? And it doesn't have to be a married man and woman. It just has to be a supportive partnership that is there to guide children. And so we've stepped it up a notch. We hold hands. We've gone on a date. Like, Charlie, you're babysitting. We're going on a date. And even though we get through our uncomfortableness programming of it, we step it up because we are modeling what a relationship, or what, the guardianship of being caring and showing the way is. And so I think that pivoted, but I hope that.
No, that's perfect.
Covered. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought the stepdad element up, because my parents never were together. They were young, really. I mean, my mom was 15 when she had me. My dad, I think, was 17. And so they just remained friends, and it was a different experience for them. But I did have a stepdad for quite some time throughout my childhood. And so it is important that there are a lot of families out there that have that step, situation. And it's all about, I love what you said too. Don't fear me. That's one of the biggest things that I say over and over to other parents, to my husband, to my mom, back when we were talking about, how I'm parenting my kids. I don't ever want my child to fear me, ever. So it's about creating boundaries, though, and respect. So, but it's a two-way street. So I teach my children that they need to respect me back if they want to have an open relationship, so that I don't have to be that mom, because I think my kids are actually getting to that age. And I wonder about this for you too, where they're going to other people's houses. Well, my 18-year-old already knows this, but they're young, they're going to other friends' houses, or they're just being around the other parents. Doesn't matter if they go to their house or not. And both of them have come to me many times, Skylar and Aramis, the younger two, and they're like, Mom, his mom is really mean. They're this, they're that. They're not like, they don't do these things. And I'm like, see, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's a lesson for them too. When you think mom is being hard on you, you see someone else's situation is even more rough than yours. They learn that, to appreciate what they do have, because I am very nice and loving compared to some of the other moms that they're seeing are not. And it's an eye opener for them. And it's just about creating healthy relationships, like you said, healthy boundaries, so that they grow up and go through life knowing what the appropriate models are. Like you said, holding hands, it's okay, or being respectful, or respecting somebody else that comes in the home that may not be dad, or other situations. And it's about creating those boundaries, and it's all of it's really important.
Boundaries are huge. Yeah. It's funny when you brought up the fear thing, is that's come across from friends about stepdad. And she goes, it's so funny. So-and-so came home and we had to have this whole conversation about being strict. And I'm like, did you get that from the giant? Because he's already intimidating. He's 6'7", 300+ pounds. But, what was it? Oh, yeah. The kids had gadgets taken away for a week or something, a couple days. And the one carpool kid was like, he went home and to tell his mom, and the mom told me, and he goes, you won't believe it. They got their gadgets taken away just for not brushing their teeth, or forgetting to brush their teeth in the morning, or make the bed, or for whatever it was. And the mom's like, aren't you glad I'm not so strict? And then they talk about being strict. And that's what I'm like, they are getting these chores and this new system getting put in place. But to me, it's the healthy boundaries and respect of their body and their routine, and just being routine like that. But I do have to check the giant once in a while and be like, watch it. You don't want that to be your whole personality to the friends and families. He's just the strict stepfather. And let's have some fun. we play a little bit more.
You forget, and maybe he's trying to assert some level of dominance, but not in a way that we would think. Just, he's trying to develop his role, and he's working from his own traumas. Now your children are triggering him too. So everybody learns something,
Yeah, he had a wicked childhood, and he is very routine. He's that military, make the bed when you wake up, and, really positive things, but it's all in his delivery that we're working on. Gentler delivery.
Oh my God, you took the words right out of my mouth, Heidi. Oh my gosh, because my husband, I love him dearly. I always tell him, you might have the best thing to say, but your presentation is awful. And we laugh about it though, because he knows I'm right. And he's like, he gets wrapped up into his own childhood and what he experienced and what his dad did to him. So it comes out, and I'm like, you could be quite mean. So the kids are scared of you. But you could be saying the best thing, but if you don't say it right, they're not going to listen, because kids do shut down. They do disassociate. Everybody knows that. Doesn't matter. No one is arguing that anymore. And I know I did it a lot as a child. So you might be saying something, my mom would yell at me and she would get mad and she would go on and on and on and on. And what she didn't realize is I checked out 5 minutes, 2 minutes into the yelling, and I stopped listening. And nothing, all that time she spent yelling, nothing was happening other than me being more resentful of her yelling. Right. Again, she was only working with her own traumas, and, so not putting her down or anything. But I don't do that. I'm very mindful. If I get my point across right away, but that's it. And I even tell my kids, all right, I'm done, but let's move on from it, because I know that they're not listening after moments of being screamed at. They're going to close their mind off. They're going to disassociate. They're going to go somewhere else in their mind. And then they don't learn anything. Nothing gets resolved in those situations. And so we can put that on the list of, maybe that's something we could talk about right now. What are some of the things, parenting tips, do's and don'ts? For me, don't let them fear you. Don't make decisions for them based on what you think is right, because they're their own person. Are two big ones. I mean, there's so many others. What are some that you want to add?
Well, on top of that, with the don't bring in my old wounds and create wounds of their own based on my wounds. But the do's, the positive is listening. You can never listen enough. And that's not just listening to the words they're saying, but listen to, we all do the work. We have our little star seeds. We're working on something. We can feel their energy and we can see what else is going on here. Take a moment to really just pay attention. There's nothing that is that important that you can't give your undivided attention just for a bit, because most often than not, it's something else they're trying to get across to you. It could be something a little deeper. Not that you have to dig for it, but just pay attention to the mannerisms and their tone and their energy of their delivery. So listening do listen. That's the big thing. I'm always working on that. And understand that every child is different. And every family is different. So you can't compare yourself to your best friend's kid or your sister's kid. They're so individual. You got to honor their individual journey and treat them as such. Give them the safe space to be themselves and let themselves communicate as clear as they can, and honor their journey. I also do the whole, I don't know if it's psychological or just the old teacher in me, but it's the whole, I hear you saying this, and then you come back with another question. Are you trying to say this? If you feel a little lost when you're communicating with your kid, help them out a little bit by just like, oh, what I'm understanding is this. Is this correct? Give them a little empowerment, I think.
Yeah, the empowerment is huge. And I think that, the most humbling thing that we can do for our children is show them that we make mistakes and we admit it and think, oh man, I was wrong, or maybe mom misinterpreted that. I think it's really, it helps them. That is empowering in and of itself, because they realize, oh, mom's not perfect, dad's not perfect. And if there's some sort of peace that they get, because I think a lot of the anxiety our children have is them trying to be something that we have portrayed that they need to achieve some certain level that is unattainable. I think that this is more in past generations. I think that's happening less right now. But I think it was a big one, and they feel like they're never going to be able to be who they want to be, because they're constantly trying to be who they think we want them to be. And if we just get rid of that and say, hey, mom's 40 something, mom, dad's this, whatever, and I'm still trying to figure it out, I'm still learning, then it's like they can breathe because they don't feel that pressure.
I tell you, my tenderest moments, my moments where I want to weep, I'm just so grateful to be a mom, and like you just have those magical connection moments with your kids, are usually when I'm the one humbling myself and
Yes.
I'm near tears. I see like this whole being in them be like, yes, darling, talk to me. Like they're just like, there's my mom. She's being real right now. I just get through those moments with them like, thanks kids for being my safe space to learn through this too. So when I humble myself and check myself in front of them, it's like a sense of empowerment, but it's also like mom's human too.
Make mistakes. We're not perfect, and I think a lot of times their behavioral issues are them calling out because you know what, Heidi, they love us so much and they want to spend time with us. And I think a lot of times they just want to be with us. They want to hang out with us. I think my daughter's dream is to just be with me 100% of the time. And never, like mom, can we have some girl time? And she just would love to just have me monopolize my time just 100% of her day, just us hanging out all the time. At least that's what she wants now. And I'm not saying that lasts forever. As they get older, things change. My 18-year-old could care less what I'm doing now. And I don't see him as much as I used to. And I remind him of that. I'm like, remember those days where you would like sit on the couch with me and you would say how much you love me, and I make him feel bad. I'm like, what happened to those days? But in all seriousness, sometimes our children just want to feel our attention, and we're in the phones, we're watching this, where mom's working, and I'm guilty of this too, and my kids sometimes remind me, like, mom, stop working. Can you just not work tomorrow night? And I'm like, I'm sorry, and they just want our time and our attention.
Yes.
That's hard
Yes.
to do sometimes. We forget.
Yes, I cracked up because not long ago, I was on this roll of doing these tapings and jumping on. There was something going on often, almost daily for a point. And it's all about talking about the kids and the Starseeds. And meanwhile, I'm like, shh, guys, go away. And I'm like, wait a second. Oh, and so I literally checked out the past 2 weeks. I haven't done much of anything because I'm like, oh, I got to practice what I preach here.
Yeah.
They get my
No,
time. Yeah.
that
They
is so
totally.
true. Me too. Cause I'm like, yeah, because I'm trying to create these schools and a better education and this and that for children. But my own children are like, hey mom, hey, hi, we're here too. Can you play with me? Mom, play with me. And I'm like, oh, I just got, do this. And then sometimes I just have to be like, you know what? This is not that important right now. Like they need me more. And so sometimes they're acting out because they just want our attention. Like they want to show us that piece of art that they made that they're so proud of. And they're showing it, mom, look at this. And I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah, that's great. Like that's hurtful for them because they're so proud of what they did. And the least that mom and dad or sister or brother or whoever can do is be like, oh, wow. And really acknowledge it. And so again, I think that they're encouraging us to recognize how to prioritize what's
Yeah.
important.
And to slow down
Yeah.
and take moment by moment. I think too, when you get these inbox, these messages from people saying, oh no, something wrong with my kid. I think it needs to be addressed too. People have to be aware. Are they trying to keep up with the Joneses? Like you're keeping up with the latest. We're inundated with information and, tests and graphs and levels and all these things. But are we truly being just human with our kid? We can't compare them to anybody. You can't compare yourself to anybody. So it's really sacred. And for that, it gives you a lot of flex and a lot of breathing room. If you stop comparing yourself to others, you have room to make mistakes and then humble yourself without judgment. So it's a lot of checking yourself. That's for sure.
Is
We got to give our kids more credit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the theme of the conversation today. It's like, are their kids really the problem? Or do we need to turn around and kind of look at ourselves and realize, okay, what do I need? What healing do I need? What is my child presenting an opportunity right now for me to heal? And how can I do that? How can I look at things a little bit differently? Because I do think they are triggering us, but I think they're triggering us for a reason because we need to heal. We need to stop this generational trauma, this cycle from continuing. And the way we do that is we recognize it and we reprogram from a cellular level, energetic level, so that it doesn't continue, the cycle doesn't continue. And is it easy? Oh gosh, no, it's a daily struggle. And I think that's why it's easier sometimes for parents to just be like, oh, I told you so. Listen to me, don't ask questions. It is easier to do that, but then you shut it down. And I am a big observer. I don't know about you, but when I go out to the grocery store or I'm at the park with my kids or wherever, I am always observing everything that's going on. It's something natural that I do. And I always tend to gravitate to the children and how their parents are treating them in the grocery store, and the things that they say and the way they talk to these children. Sometimes I want to cry in the grocery store when I'm just overhearing something like, shut up, boy. And yeah, I'm going to, you don't know what I'm going to do to you later. And my daughter has a friend that she'll go to her house and she'll overhear the mom tell the little girl, the younger one, like the 2 or 3 year old, oh, when she leaves, I'm gonna beat her, later, and like all this stuff. And she'll come home and be like, Mom, this is what she said. And I want to go over there and grab that little girl and hug her so tight and be like, it's gonna be like, it breaks my heart. It really, truly breaks my heart. It's really difficult for me to see that. And I think it's happening all over the world. And so, yes, it's easier to be that kind of a person. It's easier to be angry and mean and demeaning and dominating over your children. And yeah, of course you can do it. But I think we're trying to do something different. We're trying to do better.
Well, I think it's easier in that moment, but you're setting yourself up for a
True.
really rocky ride down the road. Great. Take your easy moment. Good luck in the next few years with what you're creating. Yeah.
That's so true. You're so right about that. Yeah, you're not making it easy for anybody down the road. That's for sure.
Right. Take the time now to have the moment. You'll thank yourself later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was a great conversation. I mean, there's so much more we could say, but I think that we got kind of the gist of the topic today, and just encouraging those watching just to think, be more mindful about your thoughts, how you react to the children, what they say, all of those things. Is there anything else you want to say, Heidi, about anything that we haven't said yet, or just kind of anything else you want to add?
I think parenthood, even if it's whatever sense it is, if you're a guardian of a kid, it's a gift. You're given like a master class in becoming a master yourself. Treat it as a gift and honor yourself. Honor yourself and with respect, to trust that you know what to do and you'll know when to do it. And I think that's the biggest thing. Getting weak at the knees in parenthood is normal. It's going to happen, but you're getting trained to master yourself. So just trust the process. Know that you have been honored with a child. How amazing is that? Some don't even get that gift. So treat it with respect. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, treat it like a sprint, all these little moments, but it is a journey. And what kind of adult do you want to take care of you when you're old? I see that too. Like when I'm old, I want my kids to not just say, okay, she's done. we have a family, treat it as such.
Yeah, I want them to want me around and like not throw me in a hole later on and forget about me. I want them to actually want to be with me and take care of me later. So that's a great thing as well. Yeah. It's creating this family unit. So I think this was such a fun conversation today. It's all, and don't resist your healing, because they will persist. That just came in my mind. Resist because the children will persist and they will keep challenging you until you surrender, and you have to trust them. And that's something that my children have taught me. So thank you, Heidi, for joining me today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody watching this joined the conversation as well. I hope this conversation has found all of you well, and until next time, we'll do this again soon. So until next time, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.